Tonight, the Nolan Wells investigation into the death of a shining star, Nolan Wells, has an altercation witness emerged. A witness that claims she saw an altercation at Horn Island. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us. A Nolan Wells phone evidence torpedo.
Two confirmed witnesses that saw Nolan Wells on the island around 6 p.m. The Triton, as you said, left around 4:30.
What witnesses? Where? Who, what, where, why, and when?
I have not spoken publicly about this before, but I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells from a boat nearby. What I saw has stayed with me, and I believe it's important information. I have provided or intend to provide my account to the appropriate investigators because Nolan's family deserves the truth. Out of respect for the ongoing investigation, I won't speculate beyond what I personally observed. While I was on the boat near the area, I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells and several other individuals. I saw what appeared to be an argument that escalated after there was a dispute involving Nolan's phone. I heard Nolan yelling for his phone to be returned. The argument continued after the group reached shore, and I observed a physical fight involving Nolan and multiple people. I also observed a young woman telling them to stop. At that point, I left the area because the situation had appeared to be getting worse. I did not remain long enough to witness what happened afterward. Everything beyond what I personally observed would be speculation, so I cannot honestly say what occurred after I left. Then she said she messaged one of the individuals that she saw, "Hey, I just want to say I was a passenger on another boat and I saw the argument between you guys and will go to the police with this information. I also have video footage. My husband doesn't show much, but it shows the argument that was taken and how you guys were upset at Nolan because of the young lady."
That from Secret Service Sam on TikTok.
I have not spoken publicly about this before, but I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells from a boat nearby. One sentence, anonymous, unverified, and yet, according to reports, it just became the most contested claim in the death of a young man who never made it off the water alive. Picture this, a crowded island on the 4th of July, hundreds of boats anchored offshore, music, noise, a wall of witnesses, and somehow, weeks later, the only account of what allegedly happened to Nolan Wells in his final hours comes not from a police report, but from a social media post. That's the visual that should unsettle you. Not a crime scene. A silence where a crime scene should have been. Before we go deeper into what the records actually show, make sure you're subscribed to the Crime Infinity, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Here's what's confirmed, according to reporting on the case. Nolan Wells was reported missing after Horn Island, Mississippi, on July 4th. His body was recovered days later, on July 6th. Two witnesses have reportedly told investigators they saw Wells on the island around 6 p.m., hours after the boat he arrived on, described in reporting as a Triton, is said to have left around 4:30. That gap, nearly 90 minutes where Nolan Wells was, according to these accounts, present on an island his companions had already departed, is the fault line this entire case sits on. Then came the altercation claim. A woman, identifying herself only through an online post, said she witnessed a dispute involving Wells and several other individuals. An argument she said escalated after a disagreement over Wells' phone. She said she heard him yelling for it to be returned. She described the argument continuing onto the shore, escalating into what she called a physical fight involving Wells and multiple people, with another woman attempting to intervene. And then, by her own account, she left. She did not see what happened next. That last part matters more than anything else in her statement. Because everything after the moment she walked away is a blank space in the public record, and blank spaces in a death investigation don't stay blank. Someone fills them. This is where the moral refrain of this case has to be said out loud, because it's going to come up again. The truth doesn't need a witness who's afraid to give it. If this account is real, if it's accurate, it belongs in a police file, not a comment section. Legal analysts who reviewed the claim raised the same objection immediately. If this woman genuinely witnessed a physical altercation involving a man who was later found dead, and she has, according to her own statement, video footage timestamped from that day, footage that could either confirm or eliminate a timeline that investigators have spent weeks trying to reconstruct.
Out to veteran trial lawyer, defense attorney Philip Dubay joining me. He is joining us out of LA, formerly in the public defender's office. They try a ton of cases. Philip, first of all, has she turned it into police? She said she was. If she hasn't, I give her no credibility at all. Look, I want this to be true. Why? Because I want the video. I want to see the timestamp on the video. I want to see, was he still on Horn Island at 4:30 when his acquaintances on the Triton boat left? I want that video. And if she hasn't brought this forward to LE, law enforcement, then it means nothing to me. I mean, if I know a young man turns up dead in the water, and I know there's a controversy surrounding this, I mean, we know she knows that because she's gone online and posted it, then why not hand it over to police?
Agreed. And it should go to the grand jury for part of their investigation. But I got to tell you, if I were cross-examining her, should this even go to trial, the first question I'd ask her on that 4th of July, what she had been drinking. Before that video got activated, everybody would want to
put him up.
Drinking and smoking. You know how many people were partying?
Okay, man. Have you lost your mind? You defend criminal cases. I bet everybody you put on the stand has either been high, drunk, or worse during the altercation. Well, every witness is not a nun, a priest, or a virgin. Everybody on Horn Island was drinking, man. What are you talking about? I don't care if she took a drink. I want the video.
You want the truth is what you want. You want the truth. And let's
and that would be the video. Yeah.
Remember, Nancy.
Then posting about it online instead of turning it over to law enforcement isn't just unusual. Legally, it raises questions. Analysts have noted that under most state laws, there's no formal duty to come forward as a witness. Morally, that's a different question entirely. So what does the evidence say, independent of any witness account? This is where the case gets complicated because the physical record and the altercation claim don't yet line up cleanly. According to forensic commentary on the case, the autopsy findings, including a coronal sectioning of the face performed during a second, more detailed examination, reportedly did not identify blunt force trauma consistent with a physical fight. No lacerations, no clear strike marks on the face or hands. The areas forensic experts say typically bear evidence when someone has been in an altercation. A discoloration noted at the back of the head has been described, according to those familiar with the findings, as consistent with post-mortem blood pooling rather than an impact injury.
In my world, I put together both circumstantial and direct evidence. Direct evidence would be, for instance, DNA or a fingerprint. Circumstantial evidence is the timing of the alleged altercation and his death. Right?
Nancy,
so
Nancy,
it's hard for me to believe that there's some kind of altercation on Horn Island just before he dies, and they were not connected. That's hard for me to believe that.
Well, Nancy, she's not saying he lost the fight. She's not saying that he got beat up. If you look at the autopsy, there's no clear signs of blunt force trauma to his face or any of the vital areas that could kill him. So it doesn't appear that there's any indication that he lost a fight, that there was enough trauma in this particular fight that would lead to his death. And when you look at the autopsy, there is no blunt force trauma to his face. There is no lacerations or damages to the back of his head. This is redness that was underneath the skin.
Oh, wait, are you looking at the screen? Because I'm looking at a big red mark on the back of his head.
Yeah, but this is underneath the skin. This is not a big red gash that's in the back of his head, which would be consistent with blunt force trauma. This is something that occurred underneath the skin that could have been from pooling of blood after his death due to,
Okay, I need to explain something.
I'll let the experts talk about specifics, but it doesn't appear that.
Okay, let's do that. But I want everyone to understand why Officer Tatum is here.
Here's the question this case keeps circling back to, whether you're a true crime viewer or a trained investigator. If there was a fight, a real, physical fight, serious enough for someone to describe it, unprompted, weeks later, Where did it go? Not the argument, the evidence. Because right now, according to reporting, there are two parallel narratives running through this case, and they don't fully connect. Narrative 1. Nolan Wells got into a dispute over his phone. It escalated into a physical altercation on the island, and something happened after his acquaintances left by boat. Narrative 2. Multiple young men who were with Wells earlier that day have stated, through interviews, that they left the island around 4:30, that Wells did not get back on their boat, and that GPS and location data, described as Life 360 tracking, along with a documented emergency call reportedly made around the time in question, placed their departure well before the time frame the altercation witness describes. Both narratives can't be complete. One of them is missing something the other one has.
Joining me is Brandon Tatum, former police officer, Tucson, now star of The Officer Tatum on YouTube, who famously has interviewed the acquaintances who all say they had nothing to do with it. Let's just put that out there. He's interviewed them extensively. I want to talk about not what you want to talk about, Brandon Tatum, which is they had nothing to do with this, because I met them and I believe them. So noted. Can we talk about a potential witness to an altercation? And she seems to suggest it was over Katie. Why? Don't know what the altercation was. Maybe it was, hey, leave her alone and get on the boat, or leave her alone, she's my girlfriend, or it could be anything. But if there is a witness placing Nolan seemingly in the water, I can't tell that, but having an argument with another person, a partier at Horn Island, that is significant. It could prove or disprove your friend's timeline.
Well, Nancy, I think that it's a big obstacle to climb here because I've never heard of this altercation whatsoever. Nobody that I've talked to have alluded that this altercation was real. And also Katie, whom I saw her text messages, she didn't even say this altercation occurred. What I will say is that if I was an investigator in this investigation, I want to hear that. I want to be able to compare that information to other things that we may have or other witness statements. But I don't think it's significant because it doesn't show if Nolan Wells was actually killed in that altercation. She's claiming that there was an altercation between him arguing with somebody else. There was a potential fight, but that doesn't get me to how did he drown? How did he get in the water? And how did he not recover and come home to his family? So I would take that into consideration. I would compare that to the other interviews that I've done, but I don't think it's significant whatsoever. However, I would be incredibly skeptical because there's no other statements that I've heard from anybody that comes even close to an altercation with Nolan Wells and others over a girl.
This is where the toxicology question comes in, and it's one investigators are reportedly still working through. According to forensic commentary, blood alcohol levels can typically still be recovered from human tissue even after a body has been submerged for several days. The liver is generally the preferred source, though the process is more difficult the longer decomposition has progressed.
Yeah.
There are reports that there is no cocaine in Nolan's system. That's uncorroborated reports,
Okay.
but a good source. No cocaine in the system.
Yep.
Joe Scott, when the body has been in the elements, such as the water, for that long, how can I confirm if he had been drinking or not?
Oh, you can still pull a BA, blood alcohol, or blood ethanol level, as it's referred to. And again, Nancy, we're not talking about someone that has been down for weeks and weeks. We can still do the BA, and it can come from urine, blood. We can still draw urine and find it pretty effectively. You'll have what's referred to as qualitative. We've talked about this before, and I know you understand that. But so our friends understand, you have a qualitative amount, which they say, yes, it is present. And then you have a quantitative amount where they do the measurement of the BAC, the blood alcohol content. Just think about DWI, DUI, wherever you're from, those levels. And then we get up to those lethal levels. That's really what I'm interested in relative. And yeah, I'm interested in any of the other
toxicological findings you might have relative to anything illicit or illicit drugs, but particularly with alcohol, because that has been kind of this thing that has been said over and over and over again. Well, let me see it. I want to know what the blood alcohol level was like. And historically, I would like to know what his level of experience has been with alcohol. As you well know, because of cases you've worked on in the past, Nancy, if you're a lightweight, if you've never had anything to drink and you start taking on copious amounts of alcohol, and you're kind of a neophyte in this area, it can have very, very lethal outcomes.
Let me understand. Joe Scott Morgan joining us, star of Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan on YouTube and Death Investigator. When I'm asking you, even if the body has been in the elements for a period of days, can I still get a blood alcohol? Maybe not from urine, but you certainly can't do a blood test. But can you take human tissue from one of the organs and extract a blood alcohol from human tissue?
It'd be very difficult. Generally, the liver is the best candidate. We'll spin that down. We'll take a section of it, spin it down, and liquefy it. But again, I submit to you, Nancy, that he has not been down long enough to compromise the ability to get at least a quantitative amount. Yeah, to get a BA.
Reports have circulated that no cocaine was detected in Wells' system, though that detail has not been independently confirmed by an official release. What has been confirmed, according to the elected district attorney overseeing the case, is that the investigation remains active and that the findings from the autopsy, while reportedly complete on a technical level, have not yet been publicly released. That silence has fueled speculation. It's also, according to the DA's own public statement, deliberate. In a release statement, the district attorney said her obligation is to present the grand jury with all the evidence collected in the case in order for them to reach a decision based on a thorough investigation, complete evidence presentation, the actual truth, and an understanding of the law. She added that restraint in releasing information publicly is not an effort to withhold the truth. It's an effort, in her words, to protect the integrity of the investigation and the grand jury proceeding.
Using their home equity to pay off credit card debt. No upfront fees. It costs you nothing to find out what you could be saving. And if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. American Financing, 866-888-0344. Repeat, 866-888-0344. Or just go online to americanfinancing.net/Nancy. Disclaimer, NMLS 182334, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, APR for rates in the 5S start at 6.327% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 866-888-0344 for details about credit costs and terms. Go to http:// www.americanfinancing.net/Nancy. Average savings are based on borrowers who save over $199.99. And good luck.
I understand the public's urgency to know what happened to Nolan, but we are not taking time for time's sake. We are taking the time required to complete the work this investigation demands. Since Nolan was reported missing, local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies have worked around the clock investigating what happened to him. Every piece of evidence must be examined. Every credible lead must be followed to its conclusion. Every witness interview must be analyzed in context of all other evidence. The pressure for answers does not change what the work requires. Our responsibility to Nolan and our community is to complete this investigation thoroughly, carefully, without compromise, supported by the evidence and worthy of the confidence of the people we serve. I also understand that many people have questions about why more information has not been released publicly. In Mississippi, the rules of professional conduct restrict the information a prosecutor can release during an investigation. Our restraint in communicating facts and evidence is not an effort to keep the truth from the public. It is an effort to protect the integrity of this investigation and the grand jury proceeding.
The truth doesn't need a witness who's afraid to give it. It needs a process that isn't afraid to finish. There's also a smaller, stranger detail that's emerged around the boat's search itself. A discrepancy in a state wildlife and marine resources report that reportedly listed the vessel searched by a different brand name than the one witnesses say was actually used that day. Whether that's a clerical error or something more significant hasn't been established. But in a case already defined by gaps, a 90-minute window nobody can fully account for, a witness who says she has evidence she hasn't handed over, an autopsy that's finished but not released, even a paperwork discrepancy takes on weight it might not carry anywhere else.
And tonight, more rumblings that the wrong boat was searched.
The MDMR report states that the searched vessel was called a tide craft, right? On July 8th. But witnesses show he used a tide line boat on July 4th. In the MDMR report, right down at the bottom in the yellow, it says tide craft, not tide line.
From Sam Crouppen to Ben Dobrin, emergency response diving instructor and trainer. Ben, thank you for being with us. What about the mistake in the name of the boat, if it was in fact a mistake? And could that explain any problem in getting GPS information?
Well, absolutely, because they're two different brands of boats. It's like saying, I'm going to search a Ford, and then you go out and search a Chevrolet in a car. They're very different brands of boats. And so if they were searching the wrong boat, then any information on that boat would be the wrong information. So if you're going after the GPS plotter on the Chevrolet, but you want the GPS plotter off of the Ford, they have no bearing. And so if you're searching the incorrect boat, you have incorrect evidence.
So where does that leave the altercation claim? Sitting in the same place it started, publicly stated, privately unverified. If the footage this witness describes exists, and if it's timestamped the way she claims, it is, according to every legal analyst who's weighed in, the single most important piece of evidence in this entire case, because it could either place Nolan Wells in a physical altercation before his death or eliminate that theory completely.
Ben Dobrin joining us, emergency response diving instructor. What do you think regarding the boats, not just the Triton, but the other two boats that traveled with it?
My question is, where did he go in the water? They got him out of the water, obviously, on July 6th. But my question is, where did he go in the water, and when did he get into the water? Was it a drowning? Bodies behave differently underwater, whether it's a drowning or it was a killing elsewhere. There's a lot of different variables. The body washed up very close to where he was last seen. There's a lot of current in that area. If it was a drowning, people generally sink when they drown. But if you don't drown and you're put in the water, you're more likely to float. And so there's a lot of variables that come into play of where the body was recovered versus where the body went in, and the timeline also. 2 days, if the body had been in the water for 2 days, that does lead to decomposition. The water temperature is around 85 to 88 degrees. That's very warm water, a lot of bacterial growth. And so a lot of different variables in play of where the body went in, where it came out, and the when. Those are my questions. He's an athletic young man. He's very muscular. Muscles sink in the water, fat floats. And so if he drowned, he was probably going to be on the bottom for a while. And if it was 2 days, that makes sense if he drowned and then washed up very close to where he went in. And so to me, that's a big piece of important information is, if he drowned, he was recovered very close to where he was last seen.
But what does that prove?
If he drowned and he floated, because in warm water, it takes 2 to 3 days for your body to decompose and float. It proves that he drowned, whether it was somebody holding him underwater or him trying to swim somewhere and wasn't a good swimmer. I have no idea. But we haven't gotten the results from the autopsy, and the autopsy is going to tell us a lot. If he drowned, that's an important piece of information. If he did not drown, that's even more important. You have somebody who was found in the water, his body was found in the water and did not drown. That's a very important piece of information. But if he did drown and they found him in the water, that can open up a lot more avenues for investigation at that point.
Philip Dubé joining us, veteran trial lawyer. Philip, we know because the district attorney has said she is presenting information to a group.
Right now, the public doesn't have it. And according to reports, as of this filing, neither does law enforcement. Here's the moral refrain one final time, because it's the only conclusion this case allows right now. The truth doesn't need a witness who's afraid to give it. What we're left with is a young man who went missing on a holiday surrounded by hundreds of people, a 2-day gap between his disappearance and recovery, an autopsy that reportedly found no clear signs of a physical fight, and a claim of a violent altercation that has so far existed only in a social media post, not in an evidence file. Those two things cannot both be the full picture. One of them is missing something. If you want to dig into this yourself, the district attorney's public statement regarding the grand jury process in this case is publicly available through Jackson County, Mississippi's official channels.
And jury. There are reports it is a criminal investigation. What do you make of the possibility this is a criminal investigation?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. Jackson County, Mississippi is one of the few jurisdictions in the United States that follows the old Sergeant Code. And what that was back in the day was the days of the coroner inquest, where if you had a violent, sudden, or casual death and they couldn't figure out what happened, you would impanel a jury where the medical examiner or the then appointed or elected coroner elicits testimony from people to try to determine manner and cause of death. What Mississippi did is they abrogated that and created this hybrid sort of coroner's inquest with grand jury investigation, where the grand jury will decide whether or not a death occurred and if there was a crime. And based on that, they can complete the death certificate with the cause and manner of death and decide if they're going to return a true bill of indictment against a suspect.
Is it your belief, Philip Dubé, that the grand jury presenter, and I have presented to literally hundreds of grand juries. That's one of the first things we would do in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. Is it your belief that to a large degree, it depends on the leaning of the presenter? Does the presenter believe a crime occurred? Or does the presenter want a no bill, in other words, no indictment?
It's twofold. They want to determine, first of all, cause and manner of death and if it's a crime. And so they've sort of combined the roles of the grand jury leader, if you will, or the grand jury DA to help the grand jury make both determinations. So it's my opinion right now, they don't know if they even have a homicide. They don't even know the cause of death, but they've lumped in all the causality to criminality just to get it all in one.
Let me rephrase it, Dubé. Will the grand jury typically do what the presenter wants them to do? I mean, haven't you heard the phrase, the grand jury will indict a ham sandwich if the presenter wants them to?
Sure. Yes,
so is that
they
a
will,
yes?
but it is.
It lays out, in her own words, exactly what standard of evidence this case is being held to before any charges are considered. Read it. Then ask yourself the question this entire case comes down to. If you witnessed a fight involving someone who turned up dead 2 days later, why would you post about it online before you called the police?
Tonight, we are trying to confirm or refute claims that Nolan Wells was alive on Horn Island after 5 or even 6 p.m. If you know or think you know anything regarding that matter, Nolan Wells last seen alive, don't just post it online. Call Jackson County Sheriff's 228-769-3063. Repeat, 228-769-3063. There is a $125,000 reward for information leading to the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. Was there an altercation? Did it break out into a fist fight just before he is killed? Did he drown? What was the true cause of death? We are waiting for facts to allow the truth to unfold.
Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you want to see where this investigation goes next, the autopsy release, the grand jury outcome, whatever comes from this claim, like this video, share it, subscribe to the Crime Infinity, and turn on notifications, because we'll be here the moment the next document drops.